So the reason I'm taking the chair, you could have your hands down on the floor. Sometimes Gita says, do this type of movement. That's really helpful, this type of thing. But my torso is much lower than it would be in Warrior 3, right? So now here it's higher than it would be in Warrior 3, but it's going to give me a chance to organize my hips without so much of my torso coming this way. That makes it harder to have that torso that far over the legs. So I'm going to come to an Uttanasana, and I'm going to bend my knees slightly, and this is the important part. I'm taking what's really like Utkatasana. I'm taking my knees back over my heels. So they're not coming way forward because that puts a lot of pressure in the knee. And then I lose the bones of the legs. I lose my capacity to connect into my hip. So I'm going to shift my weight back so that I feel my knees over my heels. And that is a very different pattern of sensation than being here. So we'll go here, and then what we're going to do is raise. We're going to we shift slightly to the side. We pick a leg up. We're going to keep both legs bent, and then we're going to try to stand up. Now here's the key. When you're coming up, so the thing that you're going to focus on is first keeping the knee back over the heel, or in that sense of direction. And then as you come up, to keep resisting the knee back and to move that outer hip not only down towards the floor, but circularly back towards the heel in the air, so it doesn't swing out and forward like this. Does that make sense? So if anything, think down, but you can add that back towards the heel in the air. Let's see what happens, okay? So put your chair, so you're going to be taking your hands off the chair, but it just gives you something so you don't have to be balancing like the whole time, okay? So bring your feet fairly close to the chair. Believe it or not, closer is better. Walk closer to the chair because you've got all this chair surface to place your hands, and it's going to matter because when you take your hands off the chair, you don't want to be leaning forward on it. Okay, now bend forward, put your hands on the chair. Bend, feet apart, feet just so that it's interesting for us. Have your feet about the same distance as when you picked your foot up on the floor, because this is the idea, okay? That it relates to that first bridge pose that we did. Okay, now shift your knees back over your heels. Feel that, and you can take your hands lightly off the chair. Do you feel how that, like what's the pattern of sensation there? Okay, now lean forward so your knees come over your toes. Just notice how your leg is really different, isn't it? Okay, and I could ask you to remove your hands, but that's going to load your toes and your knees a lot. You can do a light one. You feel that? How you move your hands and your toes grip, right? So come back. Doesn't it feel like your toes spread out? And you can even lift them. So why not? Just lift them up so we make sure they're liftable. All right, now let's shift our weight to our left leg and raise the right leg back and up. Now it doesn't have to go way up, but they're both bent. And then keep your left knee moving back over your left heel as you stand up. Just do that much. Feel the challenge there, right? Okay, so bend forward again. So you're coming up with a bent knee. Okay, so can you stabilize your hip with your knee slightly bent? Because listen, life asks us to do things like that, okay? Climbing mountains, climbing stairs. So let your knees come back over your heels. Look to see, in fact, lift your toes up. That's it, not the balls of your feet, just your toes. Good. Now shift your weight to your left leg. Raise your right leg up. That's it. Take it back. Take it back because you're going towards Warrior 3. Make sure that left knee stays back over the heel as you stand up. Okay? Put your foot down. Now we're going to add that movement that I demonstrated, that circular movement, so that if you're here and your hip is going this way, can you see that? Okay, so as I'm coming up, I think knee back and outer hip towards the heel in the air. Do you see that movement? Okay, so that this outer hip isn't just coming in, because that's going to throw my knee this way. It's a circular movement. All right, let's try. So you're going to attempt to move your outer hip towards the heel in the air, because we're going to use that in Warrior 3, in the classical pose. So bend forward, put your hands on your chair. Shift your knees back over your heels and lift your toes up. Why not? That's it, just for now. You don't have to go through life with your toes lifted, but okay. Now let's shift our weight to our left leg and lift your right leg. Make sure you're not leaning on the chair. Take your knee back and up. Because you're going to stand up. Now keep your left knee moving back and move that outer left hip circularly back towards your right heel and then come up. Did you feel that engagement? Yes. Good. Let's do the other side, and let's not stand up right away. Because remember, Warrior 3, we're going to be there. So you're going to, when you lift your leg up, pause and move the hip circularly back towards the heel of the ear. So let's try again. So bend forward, hands on your, so it's Utkatasana, basically, right? Variation. All right, so keep your toes lifted for now, and move your knees back over your heels, okay? And then shift your weight to your right leg. Thank you. Lift your left leg up, okay? Now notice how that knee came forward, didn't it? Yeah. So take your knee back, take your aerial leg back, think Warrior 3. Back and up, think Warrior 3. Now move your outer right hip circularly towards your left heel and maintain that as you come up. That's it, Leslie. Yes. Do you see how it's getting in to the issue? Okay, so now move your chair, take your chair back. Okay, no chair. We're now going to go down and up like a little bird feeder. Okay, we're going to do one more round with our knees partially bent, and then we're going to work on a straight standing leg. You're learning to organize your hip with your knee bent, okay? Because that's, climbing stairs requires that. Moving from Warrior 1 to Warrior 3 requires that, to move from a bent leg to a straight leg. So what we'll do is just same thing, but you're going to put your hands on your outer hip so you feel this area. You can bend your leg and press from the outer hip down to the heel. So remember that movement. Okay, actually, we'll do it with our legs straight, and then we'll bend, trying to keep that in, and then we'll come forward, and I have to try to keep this. You see how I'm working here? I have to keep that knee back, and then I come up, keeping the outer hip circularly revolving to the heel, so I maintain that connection. Okay? So the whole time with your leg, and you're going to feel the wobbles because that's balance. Your body's trying to figure this out. Here we go. Okay, hands on the hips. We remind ourselves this part, right where you felt the burn. Okay, when you were pressing from your outer hip to your heel. So let's stand on our right. We're going to press our right. Actually, start just pressing your right foot down into the floor, and don't do anything with your left leg. Do you feel how as you press down through that right foot, or actually let's do this, press from your outer left hip to your heel. We're going to stand on your left leg, press from your outer left hip to your heel. Doesn't it feel like you're already engaging the support that you need? Okay, now pick your right foot up, take the foot back, so you get your hamstring to work, and now start to bend that standing leg. Okay, now as you bend forward, keep your hands on your hips like a bird feeder. Do you notice how your knee is coming over your toes? Mine is. Can you shift back slightly so you feel your heel? And then move your outer left hip towards the heel in the air, and then keep that as you come back up. Ooh, good. Now, let's see if on the second side, so we're going to press from the outer hip to the heel, so we feel that connection. We lift our foot up, we bend. So when you go forward, like your little bird feeder, this knee is going to tend to come forward, so you back that knee up over the heel. Do you see the difference? Let's see if we can press this foot up a little bit, and then coming up, keeping the hip in, so that your leg isn't like that. Do you see that? That tendency to stay small, okay? Because we're working on a small area. This is true. Like we're focusing in. And sometimes that focus makes us move our body parts really close together. And remember, Warrior 3, we want the compactness, but then we have to extend our limbs. So let's try. So put your hands on your hips. Warm up that attention in your right leg. So you press from your outer right hip to your heel. It's not so much of a shift. It's an activation that creates a sense of lightness in the left foot. Okay, now bend your left leg because you're already supporting with the right leg. Doesn't it feel, keep your left leg straight for a second. Put your foot down, we have to redo this. So press from your outer hip down to your heel on the right leg. That buttock is working, yeah? Okay, now keep your leg straight and bend your left leg, but keep the buttock engaged. Now you can bend your knee. And then start to come forward like your bird feeder as you press the left leg back and up. Look, glance at the knee and notice, is it coming far forward? Can you resist the shin back over the heel? And then keep that outer hip circularly revolving to the heel in the air as you stand up. As you come back up, don't lose the connection. Yes, Carrie, you were really getting that on that side, okay? Good. All right, so now we're going to take Warrior 3. So we're going to take our block, put it here. Why not stand on a block when you do it? Why not make it really hard? So I will show this way. Okay, how's that? Same idea. So I'm reminding myself as I step up on my block to press from my outer standing leg hip to my heel, okay? And then I'm going to keep my knees straight now, and I'm going to, and hands on the hips, and I'm going to pivot forward, like a little bird feeder, okay? And then I come back up. So now it's not so much an issue of taking the knee back. That's not ideal in a straight leg, but it's the outer hip. So from the front, the challenge is going to be when so you have this range of motion, you're able to get the outer hip to come in. But as soon as we start to come forward, this tends to happen. Do you see that? So I'm exaggerating that. So now if I'm here, I have to move the outer hip circularly back to the heel in the air. Do you see the difference? And that feels very different in my hip. It's the difference of feeling centered or pressured into the side, okay? So let's try. And we're coming up on the brick. We could easily do this just on the floor, but there's something, which we will, but there's something about standing on the brick that raises your attention. It heightens that sense. It does, in a good way, okay? Change is something, we notice new things. We're going to stand on our left leg, okay? So put your left foot on the brick, and before you stand up, remind yourself, press from the outer hip to the heel. Good. Now put your hands on your hips. Keep pressing from that outer left hip down to the right heel. Keep the right knee very straight, and start to pivot forward. So the leg goes back as the torso comes forward. And now your mission is to keep your outer left hip connected to your right heel. Your outer left hip connected to your right heel. See if you can find that parallel relationship to the floor, and then come back up, maintaining the outer hip connected to the heel. That's it. And then step down, okay? Now, that was coming. Jill, you could raise your aerial leg a bit so that you're not in this position where your torso is going faster than your leg. Do you see that? So see if you can take the leg back as the torso comes forward, just because of the Warrior 3 pose that we're working on, okay? So before we step up, take your attention to put your right foot on the brick, and just pause there for a moment, and now you tell me, what are you going to focus on? The outer right hip. Yes. So here we go. Stand up on that leg. Isn't that a different mind state? You stand up on that leg. Now hands on your outer hips. Keep both knees firm now, Carrie, especially that standing, the one that's in the air. And then as you come forward and take your left leg back as your torso comes forward, keep your outer right hip in relationship to your left heel, as if you had a belt connecting your outer right hip to your left heel. And then when you come back up, you have to maintain that relationship. That's it. Outer hip to the heel. Don't let the hip sag. That's it, Jill. Stand up on that leg. And then step down. Okay. So we'll go here, and then what we're going to do is raise. We're going to pick. We shift slightly to the side. We pick a leg up. We're going to keep both legs bent, and then we're going to try to stand up. Now here's the key. When you're coming up, so the thing that you're going to focus on is first keeping the knee back over the heel, or in that sense of direction. And then as you come up, to keep resisting the knee back and to move that outer hip not only down towards the floor, but circularly back towards the heel in the air, so it doesn't swing out and forward like this. Does that make sense? So if anything, think down, but you can add that back towards the heel in the air. Let's see what happens, okay?